He's still excited from meeting Ultraman.
Yeah, I am.
Is that your first time?
No, I've met him a couple of times. Just do that. There we go. No, I've seen him a couple of times. We actually ran around Tokyo a little bit 2 years ago, and he bought me a hat. I saw this really stupid hat that just said Ninja on it near Sensoji Temple, and I was just kind of like, yeah, that's cool. And he's like, okay. And he grabs it, he goes in and buys it for me. So I probably call it my Gaijin hat, my dirty foreigner hat. But yeah, he's super cool. So y'all should definitely go see Furia-san down in Celebrity West. Yeah.
Well, Randy, can you tell us who you play in Godzilla?
I cannot tell you anything about Godzilla, which is going to make for an interesting panel.
Darn it.
Well, you had a fellow Stranger Things cast member.
That's right. Millie and I do have some scenes together in the movie, so that's really fun.
She's going to be in Godzilla versus Kong too as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very interesting.
We did hit up the IMDb. It says Randy Havens playing Randall Havens.
Is that true?
It's just that it's basically like that because my character's name hasn't been released yet. It just says actor.
You're just playing yourself.
Yeah. So,
Excellent. Yeah.
well, I've been waiting on you. What's your opinion of the trailer? That I was
The
gonna
trailers
show
that they've
here,
been dropping?
but-
Yeah. I feel like it's I really appreciate that this kind of feels like the most expensive Godzilla fan film ever made, because it's just like they're really hitting a lot of these notes that fans have kind of been waiting for a long time, especially from the perspective of like they've got just enough of that broad appeal, but then you can tell that Mike Dougherty, the director, is also just a huge fan in his own right, since he's if you're a super fan and you watch the trailers as many times as I have, you'll piece things out where you're like, okay, that's in it, that's in it, that's in it. And I actually, a lot of us accidentally spoiled the ending for ourselves because we're such huge fans. We picked up on a context clue where they're like, oh, that's how it ends. Oh, crap. But that's going to be awesome, though. But I'm not going to say what it is here because I'm not a jerk. So
You're not right.
Godzilla sprouts wings and flies. No, he flies like he does in Godzilla vs. Hedorah, where he turns around and shoots it like I love that scene so much. There's so much about the goofier sides of Godzilla that I unironically love. But no, I think that I know it's like that line from MST3K. It just occurred to me this movie is kind of goofy. But anyway, no, I just think I think it kind of has that every frame of painting quality to it, because just everything looks like it's so meticulously like created to have a particular look and composition to it, and just the color choices are really bold and really exciting. I made a print that's on my table. You can get it now. That's where I chose a different color temperature for each monster. Because Ghidorah is all, it's lightning, it's thunder, it's dark clouds with flashes of gold. Mothra is these flashes of green. Like even though her wings are mostly warm colors, her power seems to emanate kind of this bluish green. Rodan is, of course, fire. He's fire and stone and rock. And then Godzilla is that lightning blue, that atomic blue. Cherenkov light is what it's called. You learned that thing.
What was I was going to ask Randy, what was it like working with the director as such passionate about his work?
It's great. It's great to work with somebody that knows exactly what they want. And yeah, Mike Dougherty's been wanting to make a Godzilla film since he was 10 years old. So it's great to have, like Matt said, like a true fan to make this Godzilla movie, because maybe we'll get a Godzilla movie where Godzilla actually fights some monsters.
Godzilla's runtime in the first movie was like 13 minutes total. 15
Exactly 11 minutes of footage of Godzilla in that movie. That's the coolest 11 minutes in life.
It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. Well, great. But I don't think we go to Godzilla movies looking for a slow burn.
Yeah.
You know, it was really bold of Gareth to go that route with that film, and I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like that's a good idea, but maybe not for this franchise.
Well, you know, so the movie that got him on the map, Monsters,
Yes.
which is a brilliant movie where
Really
you really don't see the impending threat until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. To ask that guy to make a Godzilla movie is like, okay, but you know what he did in his other movie, right? Like you never see the monsters really until like the very end of the movie. And they're like, yeah, we want you to do that with Godzilla.
It was like, to me, it was like Hulk Hogan's routine. He got his ass kind of kicked for the whole time, and then he comes back with a little leg drop. You know, when you see the scores from fans, a lot of it's like, oh,
Yeah.
the leg drop.
Yeah.
All right.
I like it. It was like, again, I respect that instinct. I just don't. And it's one of those things where I look at it as though like they tried it. It didn't quite.
Yeah.
I feel like it didn't quite hit the lane. I mean, Garrett's a great director. I was very fortunate I got to interview him for Toho Kingdom, and you know, he just couldn't have been sweeter and was still so excited to be working on it. But I could tell that it's like he wanted to do this particular approach, and I respected him for doing that. But Godzilla isn't. He wanted to take the Jaws or Alien approach, which is a good idea. But but Godzilla is not the shark from Jaws. It's not the alien. It's not the xenomorph. Those aren't characters. They're just forces, external forces pushing on the cast of characters. Godzilla is a character, and we want to see Godzilla. Don't even necessarily need to see him fighting. I just want to see him walking around and doing stuff because he's cool and big. And but once you actually got to it, that Godzilla had a ton of personality, like an old boxer, like an old or an old samurai. So I really appreciated that.
I almost fell out when on the trailer when he run at Ghidorah. You don't see Godzilla run forward that much.
You know, he's got to build up a head of steam.
Unless he's getting ready to drop kick. And, is there any scene in the movie where we were like running like this, going, Godzilla? Tell me.
What's that?
Is there any scene in the movie where you're at least running like Godzilla?
No. That's all I can say.
Man, he's good at this. I would have already blown it. I would have been like, oh, don't tell anybody, but
I do want to work in this industry again.
sure. Well, my artist, nobody cares what I say.
And I'd like to work on other big projects. So, if I obey the rules on this one, maybe I'll.
We know the drill. We've had a few Walking Dead people on here, and they're like,
Yep. Can't say.
Can you talk about like how you got involved, like how you were approached, or did you lobby for it?
I didn't. I just I auditioned for it, and the scene I auditioned for was it was from Independence Day. Really? They just gave me like fake sides from Independence Day, and I think I didn't want to like try to do what Independence Day was doing, so I just looked at what the character was, and I was like, okay, I think I see what this person is all about. But I think it was the Brent Spiner character. I think it was a speech that he gives in Independence Day.
The first one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Of course, man, that's
Of course, the first one. Come
Ooh,
on.
baby.
Come on. And actually, just like taped an audition with the casting director. Didn't even meet Mike until the table read.
Nice.
Okay. Just booked it straight off tape. But Mike was also a fan of Stranger Things, so he knew me from there, obviously, and Billy, of course.
Yeah. That's great.
does a lot of the Godzilla fans pretty much know it, but I think Mothra's gonna die in this one.
I mean, that's a part of the problem is I mean, Mothra as a character is kind of elusive for a lot of Westerners, and I don't mean that in like the you know what you're talking about. I mean, I kind of do, but no, it's just that character is so Japanese, and it's in a way that is kind of hard to like to wrap your head around if you're not from that culture. But you know, she kind of exists to be a perpetual sacrifice. Like, the whole idea is that she's an eternal cycle, and she's supposed to be the guardian of the natural order of things. And you know, she only ever turns her wrath on humanity if her little twins are threatened, which I'm gonna guess are probably not in the movie. Anyway,
That was a nice
I've always seen Mothra as kind of like Kenny from South Park. You know, he's gonna die. You're
Oh,
expecting.
see, that bums me out because Mothra is like so much cooler than that, and it's just so funny because, you know, a lot of people sort of like to make jokes about how like Mothra's a stupid character because she can't even like fight and she's just a big butterfly. What's scary about that? It's like she's not supposed to be scary. She's supposed to be beautiful and delicate, and when she fights Godzilla, she always beats him because she's smarter than him. That's just the way it is. She's basically a god, and she just, even when she gets killed, you know, in the original movie, her babies come out and they play a war of attrition with Godzilla, tire him out, cover him in silk, and then he falls in the ocean.
Bring up a silly string.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Interesting fact. So the original Mothra puppets, the little larvae, the silk they spray is actually it's a substance not too dissimilar from melted styrofoam, and they would just spray that right at the camera and just hope that it didn't hit it. And in order to clean it off, I believe they had to use gasoline in order to dissolve it. So they would have to very carefully make sure that the pyrotechnics wouldn't go too crazy at certain points because, boy, filmmaking back in the 60s was not a coward's game. That was...
You might be a big star, you might die.
Well, that was how the original suit actor got hired for Godzilla. Haruo Nakajima, he played the original Godzilla. He was friends with Mr. Furuya. He got autographs from Nakajima over at his table too. Yeah, he's sadly no longer with us. But when he was cast as the original Godzilla, the first film he was in, he was also in Seven Samurai as one of the bandits. But the first film that he actually had any kind of real face time in was, I believe it was Eagle of the Pacific. It was a war film that was made after the war, obviously. But there was a scene where this cockpit for a Zero was supposed to explode, and it's supposed to be filled with fire. And they basically were like, "Okay, who wants to be set on fire?" So, and they had all their pilot actors lined up, and Nakajima was the only one who stepped forward. So later, when they were making Godzilla, they said, "Who can we put in this 200-pound latex suit and shoot bottle rockets at?" And they said, "Let's get that guy we saw on fire." So, because Nakajima's whole ethos was, if I can appear invincible, I can be indispensable. And he was injured several times, very, very badly. Didn't tell anyone because he valued his job that much, and he also knew that if he said he had gotten injured, everybody would have been out of work for a period of time because they would have closed production. So he took it like a champ, and you know, I miss him. He's a sweet guy. But yeah,
Randy's like, thank God for CGI, you know.
Well, you know, practical stunts still exist, and there's definitely going to be some practical effects in the movie as well.
yeah.
That's good.
So it's not all computer stuff. Sometimes it gets a little too real.
I was about to say, I know that Mr. Doherty is a fan of practical effects.
Absolutely.
Krampus is an awesome movie if anybody's seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nah.
That's not her favorite.
Oh, but still though,
It is awesome.
it's a cool. I mean, just from a production standpoint, it's just really impressive. So yeah, I'm hoping for some more practical stuff in this movie.
What do you think about they did not change Godzilla a whole lot from the very first one, but I did notice the feet, you know, he had the big elephant feet in the very first one, and then you can see that this one's the 2004 one, but it looks like in the trailer, he's got, several people pointed out, he's got longer clawed, more clawed, not super pronounced, but
Well, they're more like, not so much like elephant feet as they are more like sauropod feet, because
Yeah,
they're
more
designed
like
to,
heavy,
designed
really heavy
to
animal, yeah.
withstand a lot of weight. Well, a lot of fans were like, "That's dumb. It's dumb. It's got little baby feet. That's dumb." So, I mean, I was very fortunate that I was at Tokyo Comic Con when they basically unveiled the design and the full design, and they had this big maquette of him, and you really got to appreciate the design. And he has more pronounced claws. His back plates are modeled to look like the 1954 version.
It looked like they were more pronounced.
Yeah, so they did a really good job, I think, and I like when Godzilla changes each movie. He changes a little bit, so.
And not much like Shin. I'm a big fan of Shin.
Shin Godzilla is a bit of a hard left turn when it comes to Godzilla, but in a good way.
Yeah, I've had people ask me, is it going to be like that? I'm like, absolutely not.
I was gonna say, what's your experience with the Godzilla franchise? Like, do you have any favorite movies? Like,
Definitely not the Matthew Broderick. Definitely not Jurassic Godzilla.
I mean, that would have honestly been cooler if it was just a Jurassic Park movie that broke out into a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I think the next two are probably going to be like on par with some of the best Godzilla films made. This one, strong words, and Godzilla vs. Kong are going to be really incredible.
Are you Justin? Are you not going to be in Godzilla vs. Kong? Are you?
No.
Oh.
But you know, Godzilla '98, it was like, the only reason baby Godzilla seemed to exist is because they already had the computer model of Godzilla, and they could be like, we can do this 100 times over.
You know, it'd be great if we could beat him with marbles.
It's like a Looney Tunes gag.
It's like, why didn't they do that with bowling balls in Godzilla?
Yeah.
Stupid. It was
I'm surprised they
stupid.
haven't changed the name of it yet from Godzilla. Like they did Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's just Punch Out now.
Oh, yeah.
Change the name to something else.
Well, the problem with that movie is, and I've thought a lot about, a lot. And the problem with the 1998 movie is, I actually don't think it's an unwatchably terrible film. I think it's got some good effects. I think it's kind of exciting at times. You know, it's kind of funny sometimes if you like being insulted as an audience. And but you know what? The problem is that Emmerich and Devlin, they didn't. It's not a Godzilla movie. That's the problem. It's like they just wanted to make a monster movie, and it's essentially indistinguishable from something like Beast of 20,000 Fathoms or Gorgo or Reptilicus. And there's a reason why there are 30 Godzilla movies and one Beast of 20,000 Fathoms and one Gorgo and one pick one. But so it doesn't hit those points that make Godzilla movies distinct, which is, and this is going to sound a little highfalutin, but and a little pompous. But basically, the idea in a Godzilla movie is, which I think that these new movies have really nailed, is what's it like to essentially be confronted with a god and like something that is completely overpowering. And that's why the best Godzilla movies, when or if Godzilla is defeated, it's not just we threw some missiles at him. Like, there has to be the struggle to try to find something that can defeat him or require a tremendous amount of sacrifice. It's almost like you have to balance the scales karmically in order to find a way to defeat Godzilla, since he's sort of a product of mankind. So.
The director was basically a disaster movie director, and he was, I guess, looking for another way to go, basically.
Well, it's just like, and it's also really clear from a lot of the interviews with Emmerich and Devlin that they were very dismissive of the Japanese films. And they basically were like, these are just dumb schlocky films that a bunch of hacks put together, and who cares? We'll just put a big lizard in the movie, kind of, sort of look like Godzilla, and which is funny because I think the design is actually really cool, and Patrick Papadopoulos did that design, and he was a Godzilla fan. And it could work as a Godzilla. It works in the animated series they did afterwards. It works as a Godzilla really well, but the movie's not a Godzilla movie.
The animated series was really well done.
I like that one a lot. Anyway.
How about the size of Ghidorah? I mean, when that first trailer came out, Ghidorah is a beast. I mean, when Molly's, she's looking out one window, you got one head coming here, and it's almost like him acknowledge somebody that small is kind of bizarre.
You notice when you walk by an ant?
I mean, I'm sure there's a plot-related reason for why he's got his attention on her, but you know, I think that's what's scary about it is when something is that big and then it notices you. It's almost Lovecraftian in a way, like you know, the whole. There was a really excellent post that I read that somebody posted online. That I need to lean closer into this because otherwise I'm just yelling.
Yourself back with the
Yeah, because I'm just like, I'm talking so much. But somebody made a great post where they were basically talking about like what's scary about Cthulhu and what's scary about the Lovecraft mythos and stuff. And it's like, well, it's essentially the equivalent of you're in your house and you hear a weird noise and you open your door, you look outside, and there's a bunch of ants that have formed a circle and have spelled your name. And they're like chanting your name, basically. They learn how to say your name. And you're like, what? That's essentially like, and you think and then you decide like, that's messed up. I better destroy them. And it's just like, it's one of those ideas of like being so insignificant and then getting something like the attention of something like that. Something that's just beyond human contact or influence.
Well, how do you think they're gonna top this big monster mash with Godzilla versus Kong? I know it's a hyped up battle, but
I actually think that it's pretty interesting that they're going a little more focused on just these two monsters. But I think that if you just change it up and make it kind of a different story of like, okay, so the state of the world, what they're implying is going to happen in the new movie is that this is the state of the world. The new status quo is that monsters exist, and they're all coming out of the woodwork, and they're all going to be fighting each other now. Yeah, great, cool. And I think the idea is going to be like, it's not so much like, here's X monster versus Y monster. It's going to be like, what's the new status quo for this world? And these are essentially the two top monsters now. They're going to fight, but then how is the world going to react to that? Like, I think if they change the story up a little bit, as opposed to being like a big monster match like this one, and make it more like, I think it'd be really interesting. It's not so much an escalation thing for me.
But I hope it's not the whole monster fights monster, sees a bigger threat comes along, and
The
they
Batman
have to
v
team
Superman
up.
thing.
Yeah, I hope it's a little bit more than that because I've seen the little rumors swirling that they might introduce Violente in that or something. And I mean, Ghidorah's big, but got Violente. I would love to see how big that she would be on.
I mean, that would be pretty interesting. I don't know. I honestly am hoping they'll be a little more clever than that. I mean, Adam Wingard is going to be the director on Kong, Godzilla vs. Kong, and I'm really curious about, because I saw his movie The Guest, and that's a really effective suspense thriller, and so it's going to be really interesting to see somebody with those kind of instincts take on a Godzilla movie. So we'll see.
I wonder what Kong's growth rate is, you know.
There's a piece of promotional art out there that shows the two of them
Yeah,
together.
but I mean, at that point, it's going to be, what, 50 years from the...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Skull Island was.
73 to
Oh, yeah. It's
2019.
20, yeah.
What is
Well,
that?
2020.
2020,
So, yeah, almost 50 years. 47.
Gonna be big. I still hope that he's like still kind of short compared to Godzilla though, because it'd be nice to see like Kong as sort of the underdog
Yeah.
going up against Godzilla. I mean, again, you know, Kong's smarter than Godzilla, so that'll be his edge.
Can get knocked into electrical plants, you know, it's all on.
I kind of really hope that they give him his lightning powers back from the original Kong versus Godzilla, because that was the only edge he had. I mean, he couldn't stand up to Godzilla's atomic breath, and so they're like, give him like fuzzy hands. Jazz hands.
Dead hand, there you go.
So,
But we're gonna, if anybody has any questions from the audience, just feel free to, we always keep it like
we got one right there, yeah.
Right there.
Okay, so we talked about the possibility of Mothra dying again, and so I know it was Rodan the last time, but what about the possibility of burning Godzilla?
I wouldn't put it past them. it would be really interesting. Like again, it's like for those of you who don't know, burning Godzilla is what happened in Godzilla vs. Destroyer when Godzilla essentially overheated, and his in the science of the films, his heart is like a nuclear reactor and regulating the rest of his body, and so that was his heart essentially going into meltdown mode. So, but as a result, he was like glowing red and was on the verge of exploding. So, if they were to introduce that, they'd have to do some bending over backwards to justify that, because it's a heck of a thing for him to just pull out of his butt. So, we'll see.
They are the toy spoilers out there. If you want to.
No, we're not talking about that. We're trying to be spoiler free.
All right, on the right side in the back over here.
They're going to be more than the big four. There's talks about. I know you can't really speak.
I feel so bad for Randy. Everyone's just like, yes.
And there's lots of talk about possible other ones, especially in Gears and Kumonga.
I mean, it just kind of depends on what they have the license for. I mean, we know that they have Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, and Godzilla, but I mean, I don't know. You'd think it would be bigger news if it turned out like, oh, we've got all these other like lesser tier kaiju as well, like Anguirus and Kumonga and stuff. But I don't know. There are other monsters. I mean, the latest trailer really kind of focuses on how there are other monsters in the movie, but we don't know who they are.
Those
So
spindly legs coming up out of the ground. I'm just curious what that is.
All right, right here.
In Stranger Things, most of your scenes were kind of suburban. In this new movie, you actually get to go to these practical sets. You saw these really cool sets in the trailers here and there.
Yes, there were some very cool sets. Yeah.
So you were able to do a Star Trek sets or.
I wish I could. It's eating my soul alive. But I can't say.
we'll have to do a follow-up next year, I think.
Yes, definitely.
That'd be a lot of fun, actually.
We had a guy on our walk, AJ was on our walking dead panel last year, and he would be like, dude, you know what they will do to me.
Tom Holland, you know, every interview he was in with Benedict Cumberbatch before Avengers, he was spoiling something. Benedict was steady slapping.
Oh, man. That's a shame.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a quick comment. You know, as a fan of all the Godzilla movies, but not necessarily knowing all the monsters, all the sequences and all that, it was amazing to me to watch the evolution of the Godzilla movies and to watch the 1998 version, which, you know, they decided they had to make it look like a giant iguana. And you know, and the thing about the Godzilla that came back is it's, you know, I think a simple good versus evil movie and is underrated. So you've got this gigantic Godzilla that doesn't have to look like an iguana, just a big lizard. He's a big whatever. He's created. No, but he was created by. You don't have to justify why he is what he is. You know, he is what he is, and there's a love-hate relationship. Because what is he? You know, what is he going to do? You're scared of him, but yet he's the one that saves the world. And so there's a to me there's a when you say he's a character, I think you get it out of my head because it's just a fan that enjoys movies. I thought it was good to bring him back and make him look, you know, a little ominous. To make him look like that, and here's a powerful creature. What's he going to be like? And he ends up being that. He's a human, you know. It's kind of a neat.
He killed a lot of people in Honolulu in that first movie.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Well, he did, but
He didn't kill the dog.
But you know, but he saved the world from and you know, the idea was he restores balance, you know, whatever the case is. So he's a complex character.
Yeah.
And I liked it.
I appreciate that sentiment a lot. I think it's really interesting because again, it's so fascinating to talk about the difference in approach between the American perspective and the Japanese perspective, because I'm very fortunate I get to go to Japan like once a year now, and I get to hang out with Godzilla fans over there, and their perspective is so interesting. Their fervor and their fandom is just as strong as ours, but their relationship with the character is kind of fundamentally different. Because, okay, so we call Godzilla King of the Monsters over here. That's sort of his moniker. In Japan, they call him Hakaishin, which means god of destruction. Like, he's not really a hero over there. Like in of course they had the Netflix animated films that recently came out, which are divisive. They're very, very weird movies. But I respect them for being that weird. It's almost like they didn't care if anybody liked them or not. They were going to tell their story. And in those movies, Godzilla is at the point when Godzilla destroyed humanity. He destroyed human civilization. And now this is like 20,000 years in the future after everything is gone and Godzilla is essentially one with the Earth itself. And he owns the planet, basically. And anytime he gets a whiff of humanity, he goes and destroys it. Because he's just like, nope, not on my watch. And there's nothing really deeper to it than that, and they sort of riff on that, where it's like, no, it's just this apex predator that is so powerful we can't even fight it. There's no point in trying to fight it. And those movies are so bleak in their like the inexorable march towards annihilation and like just and especially the final movie, which I don't want to spoil, but that ending, man.
The first one was pretty good. He gave you hope, and then
woo, boy, they took that away. But yeah, so the relationship is just so much more different because, like, I mean, I have this friend that I see when I go over there. She is, how do I describe her? She's crazy. But crazy in that fun way, where you're like, ooh, let's see what happens. But she is like, she basically worships Godzilla. And so do a lot of her friends. Like, and again, they're like, and I'll ask him, like, do you think he's a hero? I'm like, no, he's not. He's the destroyer of worlds. And she and her friends, they get so excited that they practically have prayer circles. Like, it's insane, and I love them so much. I'm just like, this is so delightful. But yeah, so, and then like, it's just so fascinating because the relationship is just so fundamentally different. So.
Okay, plenty of questions.
Second row, right?
What is your reaction to the backlash that NECA has been getting recently for not making the King Ghidorah figure?
Really specific question. That's okay. I mean, NECA, the toy company NECA is putting out some Godzilla figures for the new movie. They look better than the Monster Arts figures. They're not putting out a King Ghidorah yet, and people are apparently mad about that because, and NECA, of course, is like, it's going to be like a $125 figure, given the size of it. And people are like, no, just make it anyway. So I think it's silly because you might as well just spend the same amount of money on the Monster Arts figure and it's going to be the same scale. So that's your toy nerd talk there. So yeah, I think it's silly.
So you mentioned Godzilla being the destroyer of worlds. How do you feel about Mike Dougherty finally giving King Ghidorah the grandiose living apocalypse scale that he should have?
I thought that was a really cool choice. I like a lot of their choices for